I'm GW Pomichter. Thanks for logging on and tuning in. If you haven't already, go on down here and hit subscribe for us. If this is your first time, thanks for hanging with us. We're going to start out really quick. We want to do a shout out for our partners out there. Something Unique Magazine, Book, Chocolate, and Wine, the Florida Book News, Authors for Authors, and now our new friends down at Wordfire Press. I know you're familiar with those guys.
I've been around some of them.
Yeah, yes. Some of those guys, right?
From the company, yes.
That's Scott. Right, there you go. And we want to thank those guys for sharing these videos all over the World Wide Web and for helping us share these great artists and authors with you. Thanks to those partners, we are here at Pensacon 2016, and we're hanging with some fantastic artists and creators over here. And we're going to start out, we're hanging with Kevin J. Anderson, the author of over 125 books, over 50 bestsellers, and the president and founder of Wordfire Press. Is there anything you don't do, Kevin?
I don't relax very much.
I get that.
But what's the fun in that? I mean, there's so many things to do. I keep looking at, I'm running my publishing company, we're teaching writing workshops, I'm writing 4 or 5 books a year, I'm doing 22 of these cons like Pensacon this year. I live in Colorado and I hike and climb mountains whenever I get a day off.
Yeah, I catch those pictures on Facebook and it makes me go, ooh,
that's my office.
Florida.
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't have mountains here in
No,
Florida.
we don't have mountains here in Florida.
We
drove
have, like,
over some
steps.
hills,
Yeah.
but those were man-made on our way to get here. So,
but now, you know, you're alive. You gotta live. You gotta do something, see things, learn things, experience things, read good books.
Lots of good books. Lots of good. You just keeping up with what you've written.
And if you can't read enough, then just write some.
Write some. There you go. And now we're going to start out with. We were kind of perusing the Wordfire table and some of the titles that you've got out there, and you've written for some amazing franchises, and so including for our viewers that don't know, Kevin has written in the Star Wars universe. He's written in the X-Files universe. He's written the prequels to Dune. Is that right?
To Dune with Frank Herbert's
son. And coming up soon, I know everybody's headed to the theater to see Batman v Superman. And if you didn't know this, Kevin actually penned a variation on that theme.
The first meeting of Batman and Superman in the 50s during the Cold War.
In the 50s, wow. Now, obviously things have changed a lot, and we don't know what they're bringing to the screen here. They kind of keep that top secret for some reason.
Well, we know they're bringing Wonder Woman into it, so that's cool.
So that's going to be kind of neat, huh?
Well, if you didn't get it, I'm a fanboy to my core, so I'm writing Star Wars, Star Trek, Batman, Superman, Dune, X-Files. I lose track of it myself.
Just
while
dive into the universe
and
go. How hard is that to dive into someone else's universe and try to create in there?
Well, if it's something that I already love, I mean, it's inside me as it is. I mean, when I was writing Star Wars, I lived and breathed Star Wars. I was already a fan. I already had my action figures on my Millennium Falcon ship, and so working on that it's really cool. And I haven't taken on any jobs of like a show that I don't already like, or a movie I don't already like. So to me, it's like being a fan and being able to go to work in my favorite universe.
That's fantastic, man. That really is. You have out there now the Steampunk Fantasy novels. We have Clockwork Angels and Clockwork Lives.
That's really an interesting project. So I've had not just my Star Wars and Dune and X-Files.
Yeah, there's a lot of original.
But I've also, since the time that my very first novel was published, it was inspired by the music of the band Rush. And there's science fiction, fantasy, all kinds of music, that I listened to their music and I would get inspired to write stories. So I became friends with the drummer because we got connected. And the drummer, Neil Peart, wrote an album called Clockwork Angels, which is a big steampunk fantasy adventure story of a young man's journey through airships and steampunk carnivals and lost cities and pirates. And he asked me to write the novel of that. So I listened to the music and wrote the novel of that. And we love that world so much that we created a second book called Clockwork Lives. It's in the same universe, very bunch of the same characters, but a brand new story.
Okay.
And then coming up, so you can get those 2 books now.
Those are right there. Those are books based on the
album Clockwork Angels by Rush. It's their most recent album, Clockwork Angels, and then Clockwork Lives is a sequel to it. But that's not quite good enough. That there's so many other writers that have been inspired by Rush music. that with another guy named John McFettridge, who's also an author, we edited an anthology called 2113. One of Rush's most famous albums is 2112. This is 2113. It's a collection of stories by other writers that were inspired by Rush songs. And that comes out in April, so fairly soon now. It's up for pre-order right now. We got Rush fans going after it, science fiction fans. It's got a bunch of award-winning and best-selling authors.
So you can pre-order 2113.
Yes. So type in the number 2113.
Don't leave the show, but then right after the show, go type in 2113. It's the only one of its title.
Yes. You can find it, pre-order it, be the first kid on your block to get this. And if we can get 2,113 Rush fans to order it, we just might make the bestseller list. So we're
because I was worried that you were never going to make that bestseller list.
Well, it's a short story collection. It's hard for them to do that. So let's shoot for it. 2113.
I think it'd be great, guys. Get over there. 2113 on Amazon. Get it on your Kindle, wherever you can get wherever you get your books. Let's get 2,113 pre-orders plus.
And this show we're going to get at least 1,113 copies.
Well, I know you have 5 just now. We're gonna be online very soon doing that, because that's gonna be an amazing collection. And
I wrote a short story, the story 2113, which is sort of connects the album 2112 with the Clockwork Angels album. It's going to blow your mind. It's kind of a amazing thing.
That is really cool.
So like I said, I'm a fanboy by profession, and I make my living at it, and I get to come to as many of these comic shows around the country over the course of the year.
Now, you said earlier 22 of these this year is what you've got.
22 of those on the calendar so far, but we just today at Pensacon, the head of another major con came up and basically tried to fit us in this year. So maybe 23, who knows?
Maybe 23. Okay.
But this way I'm actually meeting these cons like Pensacon, Dragon Con, San Diego Comic Con, whatever. Is where I'm meeting the core fans. Just today, that must have been 13 people came up that I grew up reading your books, or I got through high school by reading your Jedi Academy
I grew
books.
up reading the Jedi Academy books, all of the old canon, the
legends.
The legendary
books.
Is that what legendary books? Okay, I like that. That's very good. Now, we understand you have another interesting distinction, is that you hold or held, you could correct me, the Guinness record for the largest single author signing. You set that record.
I set it. I was the first one. It has since been broken, but I'm the first.
You're the first guy. Okay. What was that record, by the way?
A lot.
A lot.
Let's just say all friggin' night long signing books
all
is what it was.
Long. Wow.
Down in Hollywood, they closed off a street. They had a band playing. It was for a book called Ipedrito, and just signed thousands of books that whole night.
That is fantastic, and you got to stay busy downstairs with the Wordfire table.
It's not thousands of books in one day.
Well, no, not in one night. But the amazing thing, if you guys are out and you're going to get ready to go do the cons, get by to the Wordfire table. You can't miss it.
Just look up.
Look up. It's in the sky.
We call it the Tower of Nerd.
The Tower of Nerd. Find the Tower of Nerd. Also, you have a couple other distinctions that I want to throw to make sure that you've actually got to kind of do some really fun stuff. Cheyenne Mountain. You have to go in north.
Twice.
And I got out too.
Well, as a writer, you do all kinds of cool stuff for research. And NORAD inside Cheyenne Mountain, I've taken a tour a couple of times because I've worked as a consultant for the Air Force. I had a security clearance. I was able to go in and see some stuff. But in other things, I've been able to go on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange, and I've been on the decks of aircraft carriers, and all this research, of course. I've been inside the plutonium handling facility in Los Alamos, New Mexico.
Oh, that's neat.
There's just you got to do these things. I've been on tops of mountains. I've just
living life.
Like I said earlier, you got to live. You got to do things. You don't sit around on the sofa and just go, gosh, I wish I could do something. Well, go do something.
Go do something. Wow, that is fantastic. Now, what grabbed our attention in some of the work that you've done is your humorous horror series, Dan Shambles and the Zombie Private Eye.
He's a zombie private eye.
That was pretty cool.
He's back from the dead and back on the case. So.
Back from the dead and back on the case. But where did you get the idea to turn a zombie into a private eye, man? Where did that come from?
There's so much, and I read and I like the good old gritty, nasty, dark zombie stuff. But there's a time when you really want to go from Star Wars to Spaceballs. You know, you reach the point.
Yeah.
The Walking Dead is the point where it's so violent and so dark and so edgy that sometimes you just need it to be totally goofball. And this guy is, I mean, it's in a world where all the monsters have come back. There's werewolves and vampires and mummies and ghosts and everything. And he was a human detective in the unnatural quarter where all the monsters live. And he got killed on a case, but then he came back from the dead, and now he's got to finish solving the case. But also has to find the guy who killed him. But it's laugh out loud funny. It's very, you know, like one of his cases is there's a mummy who's suing to be emancipated from a museum so that because he's a person, he's not property. And there's a vampire who thinks that because he sees pointy metal wooden stakes all over the place, so he thinks somebody's trying to kill him. And so it's like goofy all over the place. Like
yeah,
that
that's
stuff.
awesome, man. Now we got 2013 coming, 2113 coming out in April, and they're on pre-sale right now. But on that topic, we like to have a little fun. It is Hangin with. We like to have a little fun, and we want to know when they make the movie of your life, what's your theme song?
There's a Rush song on their new album called Clockwork Angels. The song is called Headlong Flight, and it's all the journeys and this great adventure. I wish that I could live it all again.
Right.
And that's kind of what my theme song is.
And who plays Kevin Anderson?
I do.
Of course,
because that's another thing I haven't done is
there
acted in a movie. So I want to fill up my resume.
Absolutely, that is fantastic. We're going to wrap it up here. We've got to go to break here really quick. But we want to thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for hanging with us.
Thanks a lot,
really,
Garrett.
it's been a lot of fun. And stay logged on, stay tuned in. We're here at Pensacon 2016 in Pensacola, Florida, and stay right where you're at and see who we're hanging with next.